Hello, my name is Joe Peltzer from Guy at the Movies. How are you?
Doing
Great, so
good. How are
nice to
you?
meet you.
Excellent. You as well. Let's dive right in. Carrie, I'd like to start with you if you don't mind. What's most striking to me with Hold Your Breath is that the story has so many parallels to what we all experienced in 2020 and beyond with COVID-19 and its impact on our lives, yet you wrote this screenplay prior to that. Where did this idea come from?
Yeah, it came from Will and I watched the Ken Burns documentary about the Dust Bowl and, just learning about that history and, growing up, you read sort of like Grapes of Wrath and things like that. But as we watched the documentary and you sort of watched the land become this sort of monstrous force that could, chase people down in these huge walls and blot out the sun, but it could also worm its way through the cracks in your walls and make your family sick. We thought, we just started saying, like, it's interesting that there's never been kind of a genre film in this setting. And that started it. And I think it just captured my imagination. These often women left behind with this sort of Sisyphean task of pushing out the dust and trying to keep their family safe, but you could never do enough. And Sort of just tying the psychology of that type of a character with the setting was just really a fun challenge and exciting to think about visually.
Absolutely. Was the intent always to take it to, the genre type film that it became, or was there more of a historical underpinning that the film started as?
I think I would probably say it's degrees of genre. I do think it always had a really psychological horror element to it. As we developed it, we did sort of bring in the gray man myth a little bit more.
hmm
But yeah, no, uh, I think the original cut had a little bit more of kind of the historical setting and
hmm
things that it sort of whittled down from.
It's amazing that without even getting into sort of the psychological horror aspects with the gray man, that even just the existence of where they live is terrifying in and of itself. The first time you see sort of the Dust Bowl in its, for lack of a better term, glory, I guess I would say, it really is quite terrifying and isolating, and it makes you really put yourself in those shoes. Will, I know directing a feature with Carrie has been a long time coming. Can you talk about the dynamic of co-directing a film with someone, especially someone that you've known for quite some time? Were there specific roles that each of you took, or was, one focused on something versus the other?
Carrie and I met in film school and have made so many projects together prior to this and worked together for so many years that we have really kind of uh, developed this kind of like Frankenstein language together between the two of us. And so, we do get asked a lot, and it's like, I think, does one of you do this? And the other one focuses on that. And the real answer is no. The real answer is that we are kind of a two-headed hydra that is kind of constantly bouncing ideas off one another, letting the best idea win. And we've always found that like that allows ideas to get tested and to make sure that the best idea, the best beat, the best scene, everything about it is always that the best thing is always rising to the top. So we don't really isolate tasks. We really approach everything lockstep.
Excellent. And I know Sarah Paulson not only stars in the film, but she is the executive producer as well. And it's no surprise that she acts the heck out of her role as Margaret.
Yes.
When casting, what was it about Sarah that sold you on her as the titular character, or the main character, I should say?
It's funny because although she's incredible in American Horror Story, it wasn't necessarily her genre work that drew us in. It's
Mhm.
truly just her work as an artist. Like, I think we first saw her in 12 Years a Slave, and she
Mhm.
just like shines in that film. Um, and I think the thing that attracted us was we love that she can play tension within a character, like the most interesting thing to me is not someone losing control, but trying to hold on to control and at times failing. And we knew she's just the kind of special performer who can play that swirl within herself,
Yeah.
without saying anything. Sometimes just her eyes can give you that
Yeah.
fight within herself.
Absolutely. And I spoke to Annalie earlier, and we spoke about this as well. Just even with her character of Esther, it was very much the same. You, without even diving into so much more about the character on screen, you felt that presence and torment in the time that we had with her. So the entire cast, and that gets down to both Amaya Miller and Alana Jones Robbins being incredible in support here. And with the latter, she just seems strikingly comfortable in her role, especially for her first feature film. Can you talk about what Alana brought to the role of Ali?
She was, yeah, she's incredible.
Yeah.
I think she's gonna do great things. Yeah, it's funny, like for us, particularly a new actor or a child, having someone who is just truly attentive to what's happening in front of them,
Hmm.
in a way of not just what am I doing next. She just had that. I mean, I wish we could take credit for it, but that was just there. And I don't know if it has anything to do with being a deaf actor, but her her way of perceiving things, she has such a keen way of observing in the scene. Like you never for a second question
Yeah.
that she's, out of the moment, or she's thinking about, okay, I have to do this sign next. She is incredibly engaged and present in a way that she just seems to have kind of cultivated naturally.
Yes.
She's incredibly smart as well. And she just, I think what we loved is that you can tune into her as an audience member and see what is she perceiving just visually that no one else is actually picking up on.
Mm.
Immediately, you feel that just by watching the first scene with her, and you also get that in every scene with Amaya as well. They're easily sold as sisters right away, just based on how they portray their characters and their bonds on screen. Can you talk about creating the atmosphere for the film? We talked a little bit about this at the beginning, but there is a historical underpinning to this, but then it's also a psychological horror attention. There's really the sense of isolation and nervousness about what's happening that's palpable through the screen. So just establishing that atmosphere, how does one go about that from screen to, the film? I mean, page to film, I should say.
I think, in Carrie's screenplay, she had a description of the house being adrift in an ocean of dust. And that was such an evocative line that we really, I think, everybody working on the film kind of keyed off that as part of our design for we're inside the house, things are tight, claustrophobic, dust is getting through the cracks, there's fabric being inhaled into the nose. We're tight inside Margaret's psychology. And then when we break wide into these big wide shots of the house where you should be getting a moment to take a breath, you can't because there's just dust everywhere. And so it feels inescapable. And it's almost like it's kind of like widescreen claustrophobia at that moment.
Yeah, we tried every image, every design choice, every shot was just trying to tap into the character's psychology. And so even like we talked a lot with our cinematographer Zoe White and our production designer Tim Grimes about seeing the house undergo a transition, that in the opening the shutters are open, we see light streaming in, and as the film progresses it starts to close in darker and darker. She starts to seal the cracks of the house. And so that went from the design of the house to the way the images progressed to even costumes and how Margaret is so on top of keeping everything tidy and white and clean, and seeing her clothing change throughout the film. So yeah, I guess it's just always, we were just always really tying it into what our characters were feeling.
Yeah.
One of the most impactful shots is when you see the dust floating through the air. And we see this throughout the film, but that just gives you that sense of there's something happening here. It's all around them. But I know we're at time here. I just want to thank you both for your time and congratulations on such a fun film.
Thank
Beautiful.
you. So
Thank you
great
so
to
much.
meet you.
Appreciate it.
Here.